Hey EcoEXPLORE! How are we doing today? Give me just one moment to flip my camera around. That's better. Hi, my name is Morgan Fries, and I work at the Nature Center at Halliburton Park, which is part of the City of Wilmington Parks and Recreation. And I'm coming to you live today from our native plant pollinator garden. You can see it is in bloom today. And I'm here to talk a little bit about this week's challenge for EcoEXPLORE's BioBlitz bonus badge. So this week is our Let's Help ID week. We worked really hard over the last 4 days of the City Nature Challenge to observe as many things as we can, and now we're all working together to identify them. And some of my very favorite observations from the City Nature Challenge are the butterflies, which are something I see a lot here in our native plant pollinator garden. So I wanted to talk to you today about identifying some of the butterflies that you can find in North Carolina. And I have not actually seen any butterflies in our pollinator garden yet today. It is pretty overcast and windy here, which is not the best weather for butterflies. But I did find another little pal, and I'm gonna turn my camera around to show you my friend briefly. So we do have a little bitty green anole hanging out with us today. While our pollinator garden is full of bees and butterflies most days, it also provides a lot of habitat and food for other types of animals too. Hey Junior Ranger Ian, I'm so glad you're with us today. And from pretty close by too. Now, in North Carolina, we have 177 species of butterflies. And if you think that learning to identify one out of 177 species of butterflies sounds kind of intimidating, I agree with you. And when we started taking notice of all of the different species of pollinators that visit our garden early last year, we've actually been monitoring it with iNaturalist for about a year now. I did not know hardly anything about identifying butterflies. But if you want to learn to identify butterflies, and this is a good tip for all kinds of identifications, from trees to birds, it's really helpful if you learn to separate. Oh, I'm glad that you love visiting Halliburton. I love coming here too. And it's great weather to be out here today. It's really helpful to separate things out into taxonomic groups that are a little bit bigger than species when you're first learning how to do IDs. And with butterflies, one good level to go to is the family level when you're identifying here in North Carolina. So in North Carolina, there might be 177 different species of butterflies, but there are only 6 different families of butterflies. That sounds a lot more manageable, right? And the good news is those families contain lots of different species that have things in common with each other. So if you can figure out what family a butterfly is in, that's a really good starting place for figuring out what species of butterfly it is that you have found wherever you're out observing nature. Now, the first of the 6 families is the swallowtails. I've got a little illustration for you. Oh, hold on. We've got a really weird nature moment. There is a yellow-bellied slider right outside of our nature center who has come over and gotten herself a little bit lost. I am going to guess that this is a female turtle, and she has probably ventured away from one of our ponds trying to find a nice place to lay her eggs. But she is unfortunately on one of our most walked on sidewalks. So I'm gonna move her to the grass out of the way really quickly. Sorry for the interruption, everyone. Nature's gonna do what nature's gonna do. Hello, sweetie. Hey, folks. Yeah, I do work here at the park. Hello. Yeah, there are a lot of people around, aren't there? Yeah, she is a very sizable turtle. I'm gonna hold her while supporting the underside of her shell, that plastron, as much as I can. And since I've only got one hand free, I'm actually gonna hold her on my hip too. We're gonna take a little walk. So going back to those butterflies, we have seen 20 different species of butterflies here in Halliburton Park. It's taken a lot of work to identify all of those, and I definitely could not have done it without the help of experts on iNaturalist. I am oh my goodness, what a nature day. I don't know if you just saw it, but a red-shouldered hawk also swooped over our the second part of our pollinator garden, which is right next to our bird feeder observation area. He or she is a little far away for me to actually get on Facebook Live, so we are not going to stop to observe the hawk for too long. But things are really hopping here today. Who knew? All right. Little turtle, good luck with your nesting. Please stay away from the walkers. And after that brief interruption, we're going to go back to our butterflies and our pollinator garden. Thank you again for your patience. Now, out of the 6 families of butterflies in North Carolina, my favorite, the one you're probably most familiar with, and the very easiest one to identify, in my opinion, are the swallowtail butterflies. They have really, really big bodies. They have bright, colorful wings, big triangular wings, and they have, most notably, those tails. So you may be familiar with things like the eastern tiger swallowtail. That is a species of butterfly that you can find all throughout the state and actually through a lot of different states on the east coast of the United States. And you'll notice they've got those tails like the long tail feathers that you see on the birds that are called swallows. They are very, very noticeable because they are so very big. You really can't mistake a swallowtail for any other family of butterfly. Now, another one of the families that I like to see, but I'm really bad at taking pictures at, is the whites and yellows, and they're also called the Pierid family. These are butterflies that, as you might guess, you can tell apart from others because they are mostly white, yellow, and orange. They don't tend to have a lot of different patterns on them. They'll have some spots and maybe a little bit of striping, but nothing super dramatic like the tiger stripes you'll see on some swallowtails. And the most noticeable thing about them is that they do not like to sit still. So I get really excited when I see one because they're flitting all over the landscape, flying very fast, fluttering every which direction. But that makes them really hard to take pictures of. So they're very cool to see, but extra hard to identify because they just won't sit still. Now, that's 2 of our families of butterflies here in North Carolina. And for eco-explorers who are watching, I have an insect question for you before we move on to the next 2 families. My question is, do you know how many legs an insect has? I'm guessing they have more legs than I do. I'll let you think on that for a moment, and we'll move on to our 3rd of the 6 families. I have not seen any painted ladies out here today. That's right, Ranger Ian. They do have 6 legs on those insects. I have seen some American ladies, which are a species that is very, very similar to painted ladies. In the past week, I caught a couple pictures during the City Nature Challenge, but I haven't seen either of the lady species around our park today. They are definitely flying, though. Now, another family of butterflies we get here in North Carolina are the meadowlarks. And they're really easy because out of all of the meadowlarks in the world, there's only one meadowlark species that we get in North Carolina, the little meadowlark, and they've got shimmery silver metallic looking bands on their wings. So 6 families, and this family's only got 1 species in it. Easy peasy. And Junior Ranger Ian, the reason I asked how many legs insects have is because the next family, the brushfoot butterflies, get a little confusing. They do have 6 legs like all insects do, but the 2 front legs are really, really small and they tend to keep them curled up close to the body. So you can see this really, really well looking at my favorite brushfoot butterfly. If you look up some pictures of monarch butterflies, those are one of the brushfoots. And if you find a picture of a monarch that is perching on something and it's resting, if you try to count the legs, you might only be able to count 4 legs because those 2 front legs are so small and curled up. So that is a really neat feature the brushfoots have. If it looks like it has 4 legs, you've already narrowed it down to that particular family. And if you really want to get a good idea of how those legs look, I would suggest you compare a picture of a monarch butterfly to a picture of an eastern tiger swallowtail. You can really see the difference in the shape of those legs when you're comparing those two species. Now so that is, let me turn around my camera again. So that's 4 of our 6 families of butterflies we've got here in North Carolina. We also have the skippers, which are a little bit beyond my drawing ability, but they are really, really cool. You can tell the skippers apart from other families of butterflies because they're very small, they're very fast, and, oh, nope, that was a fly who went by, not a skipper. And their wings are really small compared to having a really big body. The other cool thing about lots of skippers is that they rest with their forewings. So we've got, I'll show you our little metal mark again. The 2 wing parts up towards the front are called the forewings. The 2 towards the back of the body are the hind wings. And the forewings on a lot of skippers fold up towards the sky when they're resting. So they've got this funky shape that looks like a really weird, fancy paper airplane to me. So they're very distinctive. That is our skippers. And then the last family is the hardest one. It is the gossamer winged butterflies, and there's not really one good hint for them. There are a lot of different kinds of gossamer winged butterflies. It's a bit of a catch-all group, but it does have a couple of neat groups of butterflies within it, like the hair streaks and the blues. So if you look those up on your own, you're going to find out that they have some of their own features that are unique to those smaller groups within the gossamer winged family. So that's our 6 families of butterflies that we find here in North Carolina. And when you're trying to figure out the species of butterfly within a family, some really great tips are to look at the shape and the colors of the wings. That's my favorite thing about butterflies, is how colorful and how interestingly shaped some of them are. Are the wings more round? Are they more triangular and pointy? Do the wings have a smooth or a flat edge to them, or is the edge kind of wavy? We call that a crenulated wing edge. You can look for patterns like spots and stripes. Those are really fun and helpful. And you also want to pay attention to where you are and the time of year, because not all butterflies can be found in North Carolina every month of the year. For example, if I were looking at butterflies today and I saw one that looked kind of like it was some kind of hair streak. Hair streaks are neat because they're very tiny and they've got teeny tiny little tails. There are some hair streaks that I can rule out right away when I'm trying to identify it, because those hair streaks don't fly in North Carolina in April at all. They only show up in late May and in June. So I'm actually going to drop in the comments in this video a link to the North Carolina Biodiversity Project webpage on butterflies, where you can find a flight chart to see what kind of butterflies are out and about which months of the year. And you can also get a checklist for the butterflies in North Carolina that are found in your region. They've got one for the mountains, one for the Piedmont, and one for here on the coastal plains. So you can get a good idea of who you're looking for when you go out spotting butterflies wherever you live. That's all I've got for you today, Eco Explorers. Remember to work on that BioBlitz bonus badge. You still got some time left to work on that this weekend and for a couple of days after. And I would be happy to keep chatting with any of you in the comments if you have more questions or more thoughts about butterflies and pollinator gardens. Once again, I'm Morgan Fries from Halliburton Park in Wilmington, North Carolina. Thank you all and have an absolutely wonderful day.